Good evening, everyone. Thanks for either coming and/or tuning in. We appreciate your being engaged. Tonight is our July 11th Town Council meeting. The agenda is before you, or you could have downloaded it previously from our website. So we'll call the meeting officially to order, and the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Charlie, please.
Heavenly Father, as we come together tonight, please guide us and give us the wisdom to do what's best for our town and our people. In God's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilman Blaylock.
Thank you.
The first public hearing and action that was scheduled, I'm passing to Mr. Eads.
Yes, Madam Mayor, staff and I have consulted. We would like to remove this hearing from tonight's agenda and re-advertise it for next month, and the notice will have a little more detail as to the action being proposed. I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone may have on that.
Questions from council?
I think it probably would be important for the public to understand what the legal test is for an advertisement of a hearing.
Yes, sir. Would a person be able to ascertain from the notice the action being contemplated? And in this particular notice, we did reference the code section. However, there are multiple facets to that code section, so after consultation with staff, we believe a new notice that would describe the various standards being looked at and considered, it would be more prudent to put that in the notice.
And is it the case that you review advertisements for accuracy, or is this a aberration?
I was asked to look at this one, and I'm not saying that as it was advertised, it's insufficient, but I think we should always err on the side of caution, and if there's any question at all, and there's no time sensitivity to it, we should add additional detail. No harm, no foul. I mean, I hate that the applicant has to wait another month, but I would much rather make sure we get it right.
Thank you, Counsel.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Let's move on then. Public hearing 2 has to do with the proposed zoning map amendment. Matt?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Public hearing number 2 is a proposed zoning map amendment for tax parcel 250CI02301. The town has received an application to rezone a portion of this parcel from R9 medium density residential to CB community business district. The total parcel is approximately 0.41 acres, fronts along East Oak Island Drive and Sellers Street, and that parcel is currently zoned, split zoned. A portion of it's R9, a portion of it is CB. All right, here you can see your aerial photograph. Unfortunately, my pointer doesn't reach quite that far. You can see in the middle of the screen, there's a 8715. That's the address of the property. There's a couple of parcels outlined there in teal. As you can see, there's a current building there. That building crosses what was previously a property line. In addition, the parking is fronting Sellers Street for this particular building. The current zoning is R9. R9 is established to provide for preservation and development of residential neighborhoods for medium-density residential development. Predominant use of land, medium-density, single-family dwellings, and their customary accessory uses. And here we have that same map with the zoning overlay. You can see the split between the parcel there, with the portion in yellow being the R9, the portion in red being the CB. You can see the CB zoning district extending along East Oak Island Drive, and then those R9 zoning districts behind. So the proposed zoning is CB. The CB district is established as a zone in which the use of the land is for commercial and service uses for the surrounding urban market area. The Town of Oak Island's comprehensive land use plan, the future land use map designates the parcel that's being considered for rezoning as being suitable for medium-density residential land use. The comprehensive land use plan considers the future land use map as the foundational guide for decisions concerning zoning and rezoning of property. You can see that same map once again. The kind of brownish color towards East Oak Island is the thoroughfare commercial future land use. And those areas in a little bit purple, pinkish color are areas suitable for medium density residential. It largely matches the zoning through the area. In addition to whether something is consistent with the adopted land use plan, town council is charged with determining whether something's reasonable and in the public interest. The proposed map amendment would expand the CB district to include a portion of the parcel that fronts Sellers Street, which is largely a residential property along Sellers Street. The property has been developed previously, as you saw in the aerial photographs, and historically used as a medical office, and that parking facility has been a part of that commercial use. The Brunswick County Tax Office lists the actual year built of the structure as 1985. It's been there for quite a while. A couple of interesting historical notes. In '86, the Town of Yopon Beach Board of Commissioners amended the zoning ordinance to allow medical offices as a conditional use in the R9 zoning district, which would have allowed this business to expand into the R9 with the requisite conditional use permit. In addition, there's some similar instances of the CB corridor extending beyond that first row of parcels. If you go down to Barbie and Womble Street, there's a couple of, the CB zoning district is deeper in relation to East Oak Island Drive than it is in other areas. In addition, we actually just dug this up last Friday. We found a Yopon zoning map from 1986 that shows the parcel is actually being zoned B1, which was a business zoning district at the time. Now, that doesn't have any regulatory value here. When the towns merged and created a new town, a new zoning map was established and adopted, and that's the official zoning map of the town of Oak Island. But we've got that map here. That little red star right there in the middle is this parcel as it fronts Sellers Street. You can see that B1 zoning district jutting out just a little bit there. Oh, Mike's coming in clutch with the pointer for us. There you go. Based on our comprehensive land use plan, staff is here to advocate for the adopted plans of the town. Staff recommends that town council deny the proposed zoning map amendment, finding that it's inconsistent with the comprehensive land use plan designation of medium density residential. That being said, anytime you have a zoning map amendment before you, the land use plan is advisory in nature. Town council is not bound by that advice, just like when I come in and give you a recommendation, you guys are the final deciders. So what that looks like under state statutes is that you could find that it's reasonable in the public interest to grant the zoning map amendment, even though it's inconsistent with the comprehensive land use plan. And that approval would amend not only the zoning map, but the comprehensive land use plan as well. And so we did draft an alternative motion for you as well, should you find that it's reasonable and in the public interest. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Matt, why did the planning board deny it?
The planning board adopted the consistency statement in the packet that finds that it's inconsistent with the comprehensive land use plan.
Thank you.
Was this before, did the planning board also have the zoning maps from '86 and the minutes?
We didn't find those until late last week.
Okay.
That's right.
I heard you say that historically this has been used as commercial.
A medical office, yes, sir, doctor's office.
After that, it was empty.
It's empty now, yes, sir.
So at no time has it ever been used as residential, as
No.
far as you know.
As far as I know, no, sir.
Let me ask you this. What alternative options or modification to the planning board recommendations can we consider?
Well, in staff's opinion, it is inconsistent with the comprehensive land use plan, so should town council still wish to amend the zoning map, the motion you have on the screen is what you would use, finding that it is inconsistent with the land use plan, but it is reasonable in the public interest, so you would like to amend the zoning map and the future land use map simultaneously. And that action's permitted under the North Carolina general statutes. In fact, anytime you find that it's inconsistent and you amend your zoning map, it automatically amends the future land use map. It's just a consequence of it.
One thing I'm confused on, when you put the map up, the part of the building that faces Oak Island Drive, that is all already commercial.
That's
Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And it looked like 10% maybe in the back where you had a little square. That is the part that is not in compliance.
And the parking, that's right, the parking lot, yes, sir.
Okay.
So, Matt, just to be clear on this, so this was once legal, but now is non-conforming post-merger. It's clearly zone residential, and regardless of the status that it was foul for a period of time, is immaterial. So is the previous Yopon decision, correct?
That's right. It's presented to you just as a test of reasonability. Is it reasonable and in the public interest? The historical use of the property, the historical zoning of the property may have some bearing on that. We just want you to make sure you have all the information so you can make a reasoned decision on that.
So, I mean, it seems to me that this would be disruptive to change zoning and the land use plan based on this request and expand into a residential neighborhood and reactivate a use that's been non-existent for a long period of time. I don't know how long. Since, do you know when it closed?
No, sir. Prior to me coming
I don't
here.
either, but let's say a significant period of time.
Over a year, I would say, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Is that an accurate summation of where we are?
I mean, whether something's disruptive or not is a subjective decision, an opinion of council.
And for the first time in several meetings, we have alignment between the planning board's recommendation and your recommendation, correct?
Oh, the planning board and staff agreed in this instance, yes.
What was the planning board vote?
Was it unanimous? I think I have it in your agenda packet.
Okay, so
That was without the additional information that
Yeah.
was provided to us once we started asking the questions.
but would it really matter? That's my question.
Oh, I don't really have a way to know that, unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
I said we don't really have a way to know whether it would matter, unfortunately.
Right, so the stars are aligned, both the planning board and the administration saying this would be a bad decision. Even if we found something, unless it was a grievous error, right? Our zoning would control how the property is viewed, correct?
Yeah, this is the official zoning map of the town of Oak Island, that's right.
Okay.
And the conditional use does not follow the land, correct?
It does follow the land. That being said, this use is no longer permitted at all in the R9 in our current ordinance.
Medical office?
Medical office, that's right. So even if they had a conditional use permit, once it was removed as a use in the R9 zoning district, that just added to the legal nonconformity nature of it once it closed. And once it's been closed for a year, you can't reestablish that use.
So in order for them to be able to use that piece of property, they'd have to tear the building down since it sits across the property line of the zoning.
Yeah, it would have to, the property would have to be redeveloped, that's right.
Walk me through that again, Matt, if maybe I'm not getting this. The last, just looking at the picture, 10 feet, 15 feet, of the depth of that building and the parking lot is in the residential area. But the other 80, 90% of that building that faces Oak Island Drive is in compliance with commercial.
Well, it would, once you start tearing out the parking part of the building, in order to reestablish a use in that, whatever's left of the building, does it have adequate parking on the parcel still? Does it meet all the setback requirements? There's other questions you'd have to answer as far as that. You know, without a detailed plan from someone, I couldn't say, but it seems likely that it would have to be redeveloped in full.
Okay.
Yeah.
One last question. I'm still trying to gather my thoughts. The word reasonableness. On Womble Street and on Barbie Street, there are businesses that go that far back. And they are in compliance. And now this building goes that far back, 2 blocks over, but they don't fall within, are the others grandfathered in, or how did that happen?
There's some zoning districts in the CB that extend beyond that first row of parcels. So I don't know which one specifically you're talking about, but I believe I believe the 2 streets you mentioned, we talked about in our agenda packet, they do extend back. The CB goes back farther than that first row of parcels.
And just one last thing, I think this may be obvious, but I want to confirm that it's true. There are residences which would be impacted by this change, correct?
There's 1, 2, 3,
The way I look,
5 adjacent parcels that are zoned R9.
yeah, they would be impacted.
Impacted in what way?
Well, there's suddenly a business that's going to be restarted next to their home.
Sure.
And I would consider that an impact. Okay, just want to be clear.
And lastly, Matt, and I appreciate Councilman Bach's position, but my position is we have a building right across the street from that, a Mexican restaurant that's been empty since before I moved here. And we have this building that's been empty since before I moved here, which is a long time ago. And we're talking about the definition of best interest. As planning director, do you think it's in the best interest of the town to have vacant buildings on Oak Island Drive?
If I put on my very limited economic development hat, I'll go ahead and say that typically when you have a commercial district, it's important to keep that district vibrant and lively, and that means that the businesses are being used and are being frequented. When you have businesses that sit vacant for a long time and aren't redeveloped, you know, we don't have any requirement for this property to be developed. The property owner could keep it as it is and just not use it for however long they see fit. That tends to have a negative impact on the economics of the area.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got a couple of questions. Matt, first question, if you were to take a time machine back to the days of the Yopon Beach and the Long Beach merger and redoing the zoning plan and land use plan, would you have a different opinion than what you have today on how this land would have been zoned?
Well, we wouldn't have had the current comprehensive land use plan that we have now. I believe there was some effort, I found some documentation of efforts to try to merge the 2 zoning districts. You know, certainly Yopon and Long Beach had different zoning districts. So, you know, like I said, the zoning map for Yopon is different than the town of Oak Island has now. You know, when you're merging those 2 things together, typically don't make changes like that, but I can't speak to what was done when it happened in '99.
So in your professional point of view, you would not have made the change? That would still be in B1,
Yeah,
so to speak.
that's a pretty interesting hypothetical. I was in high school then, so who knows what would have happened.
Last question, who drafted the text for the alternative motion that we see before us?
Staff drafted it for you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Matt, I got a couple of questions for you. If we rezone it, or anyway, tear the building down, okay? Then you build another building there, hopefully, you're gonna move it further forward, okay? Where are you gonna park? Whatever business you have there has no place to park.
Without a site design in front of us, I can't really comment on how you would redevelop the property, but you're right, it would be difficult. It's a small parcel. Yeah.
We have public, so.
If that lot were available and became CB, could it be designated for parking?
For the business,
Yes,
it's the parking for the business now.
okay.
So I can't speak to whether the property owner wants to redevelop it in any way as it sits. But certainly if they were gonna open a business there, it would make sense to use the existing parking lot as it sits, yeah. And we would, depending on the business, we would check to make sure that they have the minimum parking for whatever new use is gonna occupy the building.
Any other questions from council?
One last one, Matt, to agree with the planning board and with the staff on this recommendation. In my opinion, handcuffs two pieces of ground, that medical office and the one across the street. The only way they would ever be used without some kind of change would be to knock them down and build a house.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Is there a motion on the floor to either,
Public hearing.
Public hearing,
public hearing, I forgot about
And I'm
that.
not sure if the applicant was here and wanted to speak as well.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Matt, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Matt.
Anyone who signed up for?
I do have two people. I don't know if the applicant was here as well and wanted to. Is the applicant here?
Second in the back.
No? Okay. Bob Chulo?
Madam Clerk, did we formally open the hearing yet?
We generally don't do that by motion, but just by calling it.
I'm just saying, has that been called to open it? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, and our esteemed council members and town management. My name is Bob Chula. I live at 163 Northeast 3rd Street. Thank you for your service and commitment to the Oak Island community. To be fully transparent, I am now a candidate for Oak Island Town Council in this year's election. I'm here to speak in opposition to the zoning change to impact the Sellers residential neighborhood by rezoning a residential lot with so many residential abutters to commercial. I ask that the council support our residential neighborhoods and join the recommendation of both our planning board and our town planning staff against this zoning change before you tonight. There are several reasons to deny. Oak Island has to balance our residential and commercial zoning to benefit its townspeople. Our comprehensive land use plan does not in any way recommend negatively impacting the residential neighborhoods of Yaupon by allowing commercial uses to encroach into our historic Yaupon neighborhoods. Some folks have been saying this property will be a nail salon. However, you cannot consider a rezoning based on a specific use. You must remember that by changing to commercial zoning, you will allow any and all commercial business uses to abut and potentially negatively impact the neighbors. This property with access on 2 streets could easily become a fast food restaurant with a drive-through, dumping cars onto Sellers Street, should Greg Cleaver decide to sell his building next door. This is not a wise move and will send a worrisome signal to every resident that is near or abuts a commercial zone that their quality of life and property values are at risk. Our Yaupon neighborhoods and residents should be protected. We should use our UDO and zoning to legally protect and benefit our residents, to align with commercial use plan, and to secure our future as a small, family-friendly town. Our Yaupon neighborhoods are the epitome of a small, family-friendly town. I welcome new businesses to the island and urge the petitioner to find an existing CB property which fits his or her needs to acquire for their business rather than rezoning a residential yacht. Oak Island has seen enormous growth and development over the past few years. We have lost many working and middle-class residents and families. We have a worker shortage. Council needs to use its lawful tools like our UDO and zoning to protect our neighborhoods and residents. Pushing back on overdevelopment at the cost of longtime residents and our natural and environmental treasures needs to start now. Please protect our remaining neighborhoods and residents. Please vote to protect the people of Oak Island. Thank you again for your service.
Glenn Baker.
Good evening, I'm Glenn Baker. I live at 110 Northeast 16th Street on Oak Island. I want to thank the mayor and the council and the town staff for letting me speak tonight on the issue of the OKI Drive cellar zoning change. The reason why I'm against that are the following reasons, and some of these Councilman Bach had just went over, okay, and also Mr. Chulo did. But this change would not be consistent with our comprehensive land use plan. Okay? What's the point of having that plan if we're not going to follow it? This change would allow commercial uses to encroach into the Yopon residential neighborhood behind the Oak Island Drive Community Business Zone, as Councilman Bach stated on that. For the most part, all of our Oak Island Drive Community Business Zone is one lot deep on both sides and abuts residential neighborhoods. Why would we want to impact our residents with increased commercial uses? How many more businesses on Oak Island Drive will be adversely impacted by various businesses buying up house lots and increasing their businesses? When would this activity stop? The community business zone is designated for businesses to support the Oak Island residents and visitors. If we randomly allow businesses to randomly grow at the cost of residential lots, we disrupt neighborhoods, we disrupt residents, and we disrupt people, our voters. When and where does this stop? Who across Oak Island is safe from being impacted? Please don't approve this change. It is not consistent with our town vision, the land use plan, and it is not consistent with town planning best practices. Thank you for your service on the council and for your time tonight to listen to the Oak Island people.
Thank you.
Mayor, I did have one other person who I think wanted to speak, but said she was late to the meeting and didn't sign up.
Perfect.
Good evening. I'm Donna Means, and I live on Northeast 37th Street. And please forgive me for being late again. I agree fully with the two previous speakers. I was thinking about this. We can't afford to start allowing residential lots to become commercial. If that's going to happen, what is to stop someone on my street from saying they want to open a tattoo parlor? And if there's a precedent of allowing businesses to move into residential areas, then how are you going to tell these people, no, they can't do it? I have been against a lot of the building that's gone on here. I was not happy when the size of new structures remained at 5,000 square feet. I find it hard to believe that some of these 15-bedroom houses are 5,000 square feet. But that's neither here nor there. I think instead of focusing so much on tourists, and I appreciate the tourism industry, but people who have lived here for any length of time, it's like a slap in the face. We come here, we make our plea, and it's like it falls on deaf ears. I just want to change the subject a little bit for 1 minute and go back to the beach restoration. I just read that some of the towns on the Outer Banks have said that it is far more economically reasonable to buy up these houses that are in danger of washing away than to spend all the money for beach renourishment. And I'm wondering, since so many have washed away there, we will eventually have them washing away here. So I think we need to think about that. Also, the amount of sea life that's going to be murdered in dredging. And I realize my time is up, so thank you so much. But it needs to stay residential. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Last one?
Everybody. Just, Madam Mayor, just, if the applicant's here, I think we've already asked.
Want to make sure.
There's
The applicant, did you want to speak?
there's a lady. Would you want to, did you sign up for this hearing, ma'am? That's up to Madam Mayor, but, Madam Mayor, would you?
Are you the applicant?
She's a neighbor. No, I'm not. She lives,
Let somebody else speak.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. You
Do,
do.
because you're being recorded.
See, I wasn't prepared to speak in any way. I just wanted to say I
Name and
live.
address.
My name is Karen Flom,
Thank you.
and I live at 312 Cellar Street. So obviously, I'm very hopeful that it will not change to being commercial right across the street. We bought when it was Yopon Beach, fell in love with it, loved Cellar Street, and I'm just hoping beyond hope. It's a neighborhood that it will stay as it has been in the past because we plan on staying on Cellar Street for as long as we live. So thank you all very much.
Any other comments, questions from council? We ready to vote?
I'll make a motion to
Make a
close
motion.
public hearing.
Thank you for
Second.
that. All in favor? Unanimous. Is there a motion on this issue?
Make a motion to deny the request to rezone this parcel.
There's another part of it. Are you leaving that out?
You want me to read it? All right. Lisa, where are we?
12. 15.
15? Okay. Make a motion to deny the proposed zoning amendment for parcel ID number 250C102301 and adopt the associated consistency statement.
Is there a second? No second for denial? You'll have to help me here. What occurs next according to Robert's Rules of Order?
Are there
Is
any
there further
other-
discussion?
Are there any other motions?
I was totally against this in the beginning when I read all this and read the planning board minutes. However, that was before we were able to come up with some maps from the old Yopon area. Therefore, I will make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment for parcel ID 250CI02301 and amend the future land use map, finding that the amendment is inconsistent with the comprehensive land use plan designation of medium-density residential, but has historically been used as a medical office, which is permitted use in CB zoning district, reasonable and in the public interest as it will align with the historical use of the property with the current zoning code.
I'll second that.
A second for Mr. Martin is, council? All in favor?
No, Madam Mayor, roll call vote. People on the
Roll call
record.
vote.
Thank you.
Okay,
Let me know when you're ready, Lisa.
I'm ready. Mayor Pro Tem Bach,
No.
Councilman Bell,
Yes?
Councilman Kraft,
I want to preface my vote with saying I am not in favor of encroaching on residential land. But this was a historically commercial piece of property. I vote in agreement, yes.
Councilman Blaylock,
Yes.
and Councilman Martin.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 4-1.
Do we have a motion to, oh, we've just done the motion, we closed the public comment, sorry. There's a presentation from Skip Cox.
Good evening, Mayor, Town Manager, and Town Council. I just want to take some time to give you a brief mid-year activity report for 2023, our 10th Beach Ambassador season. We began official beach patrols on May the 6th. We still have the same 27 trained ambassadors that we began with, so I'm happy about that. Together through the end of June, these dedicated volunteers have logged 242 individual patrols and 399 hours on the beach. I'm pleased to report that our visitors and residents are demonstrating pretty good behavior on our beach so far. There have been no unusual encounters and no major issues. Large abandoned holes, as the cartoon will show you, are an epidemic and again, our number one problem on the beach. I'm not taking lightly by this cartoon the fact that that holes are a problem. But the ambassador that sent this to me said, I was always wondering why there's such a fascination with digging large holes on the beach. This cartoon, if it was a little bit larger, you might be able to see that that's probably one of the answers. And if you'll note, everyone milling around on the beach are addicted to their cell phones, so that's an accident waiting to happen. The police department and public works have been very responsive to calls on holes that are too wide and too deep for ambassadors to safely fill. The BSU personnel also fill holes when they can. There does not seem to be a reasonable solution to this problem, so we just deal with it. Dune violations this year have been about average. With the condition of our dunes, and primarily on the west end, it's a real challenge for our beach ambassadors to clearly determine where the dunes begin. During the latter part of last season, an expansion of the existing emergency access ordinance was enacted. The town installed well-designed pictorial signs that indicated the restricted area of the access from Beach Road to the ocean. This season, I made it our number one goal to be very diligent about keeping the emergency accesses free and clear of all personnel and their property. However, the BSI, I, and the beach ambassadors are constantly having to request that groups of people relocate outside of the restricted area. Again, it is clear that people just don't feel the need or the desire to read our signs, no matter how important they may be. I have asked that our beach ambassadors record in their patrol reports the number of relocations that they make. In the 3 weeks of May, there were 39. In June, there were 145. And so far in July, there have been 49, and we've still got 2.5 weeks to go. And this doesn't include the number of relocations by the BSU. Keep that in mind. There's 9 of them out there on the beach from 10 to 6, 7 days a week. They're doing a lot of relocations as well. So you can see that this is a real issue as our crowds increase. The good news is that most people who are asked to relocate do so immediately and without a complaint. I had a very good meeting on June the 21st with our town manager, the Oak Island Fire Department, Oak Island Water Rescue, and the Oak Island Police Chief. I learned that there were a number of events already underway to do a full evaluation of our emergency accesses, and I learned today that the review and the changes have been completed. This season, we are once again pleased to see the BSU on the beach. They are very active, and their presence is a real asset. Their display of current RIP current conditions is very helpful, and our beach ambassadors and the BSU have formed a very good working relationship. Finally, the rental of the Bobcat UTV is going very well. I have not had a single issue with the beach ambassador unit, which is great compared to the numerous issues over the years with our John Deere Gators. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your report. Are there any requests for adjustments to the agenda? Very good. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much. Public comment. This is the time when general topics and agenda items may be addressed. Please state your name and address. And you have 3 minutes to express your views.
First, I have Paul Dubay.
Paul Dubay, 1105 East Oak Island Drive. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Town Council. I stand before you this evening as the new chair of the Recreation Advisory Board. Per Town Ordinance 22-42, Rec Advisory Board powers and duties. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board shall serve as an advisory board for the Recreation Department and the Town Council, suggest policies and make recommendations concerning recreation programs, plans, and facilities to the Recreation Director, the Town Manager, and the Town Council. Serve as a link between the Recreation Director, the Town Manager, Town Council, and the citizens of the community on matters in the leisure services area. Consult with and advise the Recreation Director, Town Manager, and Town Council in the matters affecting recreation policies, programs, finances, and the acquisition and disposal of lands and properties related to the total community recreation program and to its long-range projected program for recreation. Make recommendations to the Public Works Department concerning tree planting and beautification projects for public parks and recreation facilities. Conduct an annual review and update of the 5-year Parks and Recreation Master Plan to present to Town Council. My plan is to address Town Council with updates on a quarterly basis and urge you to read our monthly meeting minutes, which will be sent out to you on a monthly basis. The board is not only about recommending needed additional pickleball courts. To name a few, this past year we worked with Dixie League Baseball to help bring youth baseball back to Bill Smith Park in a larger way. There's even more work that can be done here. We toured other area recreation and cultural arts facilities, garnering ideas for our new rec center, and are looking forward to helping make this a reality. Advisory board member Bill Millard recently presented a proposal to get the go-ahead from Town Council to further investigate the expansion of the nature trail from the rec center to Middleton Avenue. We are continuing to gather more information to present to you. We are hoping to present to you next month a Hometown Heroes flag program to honor current, past, and fallen members of the armed forces and first responders. We will be dissecting the current 5-year recreation master plan and coming up with a list of short-term and longer-term wants and needs to present. As part of this evaluation, we'll be touring this year each park and determining what may be needed. And lastly, I do not know when we last had a youth member on the advisory board. When school is back in session, our plans are to reach out to South Brunswick High School to start the process of filling this slot. Please reach out to me or any member of the advisory board with questions, concerns, and suggestions. We are committed to bringing ideas and programs in front of you for the betterment of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Town Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening at this public hearing. I'm here tonight to discuss several items, including the public hearing notice concerning Article 8. I'm glad that you folks are going to postpone the public hearing until next month. Passing this amendment to make height changes across the entire mainland of Oak Island in the CLD zones. I believe the public notice was poorly written and inadequate to be a legal public notice. Please communicate what will change so that the due process public notices will be forthcoming and fully communicate the purpose of such meetings to the citizens. I would also like to speak briefly on the Business Advisory Board. I read about this in the agenda packet. My question is why? I understand businesses are very important and valued in the community, but the Economic Development Officer and this advisory board will be paid for by taxpayer dollars. The people I talk to would say we need a resident advisory board. I'd like to also speak about the Economic Development Officer's position. Why is the position needed, and how will it benefit the taxpayers of Oak Island? Oak Islanders love our mom and pop businesses, like Island Joe's, Coco Cabana, Thomas Drugs, Oak Island Hardware, and many others. Does council have an idea about what type of businesses they are trying to draw to the island? Are we looking to attract chain restaurants and name brand retail stores? I look forward to hearing from each of you concerning these issues. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Pete Grenzy.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Pete Grenzy. I'm representing Oak Island Water Rescue as the chief, and I'm going to give our activity report from January 1st to June 30th of this year. The Oak Island Water Rescue Team comprises of 24 rescue members and 10 auxiliary members, all volunteers, who have logged in 3,180 hours of service for the first 6 months of 2023. We estimated that this saved the citizens of Oak Island approximately $79,000. They participate in special events and community outreach programs, 9 so far. We've had 27 rescues. We have drills and training, approximately 500 hours worth, numerous meetings, and all told, 692 member activities. This does not reflect the numerous hours our treasurer and finance chair spend keeping us fiscally responsible. We have had 15,500 QR code scans for RIP current information. We are reporting twice daily to the National Weather Service about our current RIP current conditions on Oak Island. This helps them with their forecasting and in turn helps our residents and visitors to stay safe. We have obtained an auditor certification
as per council request and were found to be in compliance with the agreements of the County of Brunswick and the Town of Oak Island. Therefore, we will be submitting an invoice for the first half of the monies that have been allocated to water rescue. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very
Pete.
much.
Appreciate it.
Gerald Gilbert?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of Town Council. My name is Durrell Gilbert. I live at 5423 West Beach. I guess I'm otherwise known as the Sandman, maybe? Anyway, I wanted to talk not about sand, and I apologize because this topic I know was dealt with on the last Town Council meeting, and it's not about the tree quota per se, but it is to encourage the Town Council to really think in a bigger way about the trees and the benefit they bring to the island. If you drive over Middleton, you sort of leave this area nearing Yacht where you get all of these beautiful trees, and then it's just a barren row of homes as far as you can see along the beach. There's no incentive currently for anyone on that side of the canal to really be looking at trees as a way to reestablish trees that were lost in their development. I would also encourage the Town Council to establish a citizens board, working with Parks and Rec, working with the Planning Board to look at and evaluate how we can incent not just putting trees on vacant lots that are being built for homes, but how can we incent residents to put trees that will survive closer to the ocean so that they can begin to establish what I would call the future heritage trees that we're very concerned about losing today. Can we create a fund so that if someone who has a requirement to put up so many trees in their on their property with the new construction, if they can't accommodate all those, can they pay money for trees that other homes can then adopt and put into their lots that are completely barren? And also, are there tax incentives that we can create, even de minimis incentives, but something that recognizes that in the long term of the town, it's to the benefit of all of us to be planting trees to help our community. Lastly, I would urge this type of a board to look at the value that a greenway can add to this island. We really, other than the ocean, we really don't have that place that people convene. We have Middleton Park, but if you walk over there, it's just a big lawn. It could really be a much different place as a greenway, as the start of a greenway for gathering of citizens, not just festivals, but other things, park benches that allow people to congregate. And I also think it is a big component of an economic development plan. If you look at small cities, towns across the nation, greenways and beautifully done parks are an incentive for residential development, for businesses, and for other types of economic activity, as well as the socialization and the gathering of the community. I appreciate you considering these options to help us get in a bigger way after the tree situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bob Chulo?
Bob Chulo, 163 Northeast 3rd Street. I promise not to hog the podium any longer. Tonight, members of council and the public will be introduced to our newly hired Economic Development Officer. We welcome and wish Haley well in her new role. Tonight, we will hear her tell us about her important duties to the town. I personally look forward to hearing from her as often as much as possible. Thanks to Councilmember John Bach's unending pressure to hire an Economic Development Officer, we finally have a professional who will earn her salary over and over again for us as she moves this town toward a sustainable economic position for the benefit of everyone, and how her work will benefit all residents of Oak Island as well as businesses. The second item I want to talk about is the other public hearing about Article 8 on building heights. It was announced earlier that it was going to be postponed until next month. Zoning changes have to be properly advertised as a constitutionally guaranteed due process public right. And every planning board member and planning professional certainly understands that. While I strongly agree the planning hearing should be postponed, we should question how a sensitive, a highly sensitive Oak Island issue like height limit increase would be omitted or left out of a zoning public notice. I hold, which you can't see, 2 public notices. One is the first one we had about rezoning the Cellar Street property, and it clearly states here that rezoning from residential to commercial. The other one about the building height never mentions building height. I mean, completely omitted, an oversight, whatever. Like many residents of Oak Island, I'm puzzled why this oversight continues to happen. I ask that the council address how our town could spend money to inform all interested parties about a public hearing and a council vote to change building heights limits on Oak Island, but never mention building height limits. Will this mistake be passed over and ignored, or will you ask for an explanation to clarify how this mistake could be made? Frustration and distrust on our small island are a little bit higher than they should be. And ask yourself why there are so many Oak Island Facebook groups. Oak Island Civic Alliance, Oak Island Involved Citizens, Citizens for Planned Growth, and numerous others. The underlying reason why we have so many of these groups is the perceived lack of transparency, trust, and information, and the inability of the residents of Oak Island to have an opportunity to have their questions answered. We are better than that, and I urge each member of Town Council to focus on gaining back the trust of the residents of Oak Island. Thank you for the service to the Oak Island community.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Brookover, 127 Northeast 31st Street. I am a member of the Parks and Planning, Recreation Parks and Planning Advisory Board, and I'm also a volunteer with the Parks Department. So I just want to give you an update, as well as the folks here in the audience and those watching, on the Ocean Education and Nature Centers. A lot of people are still not aware of these 2 facilities. So we do have a nature center at 500202 East Yacht. In the month of June, we had 535 visitors at the Nature Center, which, if you have not been there, is probably an eighth the size of this room, as well as outdoor space. And over there, we've put in new signs this year where you can get information on the different trees and plants and wildlife as well. And then the Ocean Education Center is literally right across the street here in the Dosher Medical Plaza. We have had 75 guests participate in our Reading by the Sea program. We had 349 visitors come through the door in the month of June. For a total of the 2 places, we've had a total of 959 visitors just in the month of June. We will probably surpass that number by the 3rd week of July right now. Last Wednesday, we had 119 just at the Ocean Center. If you can imagine 119 in here, cut it by about a quarter, by 3/4, that's about the size of the Ocean Center. But we have activities for kids. I brought you a sample of the different craft activities we do. It's a clothespin shark and wrist slap band, which is part of the shark party. Tomorrow is our shark party. Please come. We are expecting 200 people. I'm not just pulling that out of the air. We've had that many and more the last 2 years. So please do come in conjunction with Shark Week. We have our shark party. But by the end of the year, we anticipate once again having 3,200 to 3,300 visitors between both sites. So if you're not aware and you have not been there, I know many people have not been there, please do so. And, and one more thing. I want to thank the Scott and the maintenance crew for the air conditioning went out the last week of June, and within 2 weeks it was fixed, and we had a new unit over at the Nature Center. Oh, we have our new floor this year. So those of you who heard me nagging about new floor for the last 2 years, and we just have updated, we have visual reality headsets. That's a very popular item. We just updated the software on that this morning. So we hope to see you at one and or both of those places, and we hope to see you at the Shark Party tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. 10 to 2.
Mayor, I don't have anybody else signed up on the list.
That's all.
That's it. That moves us on to council and mayor reports. John, do you want to start?
Happily, Madam Mayor. First, I'd like to salute the numerous people who were involved in the 4th of July week and the variety of activities, and it was really in sync, so thank the administration, the staff, first responders, beach preservation, et cetera. And we have become a featured destination because of what we do on 4th of July. And speaking of that, I found it interesting and instructive. So several weeks ago, we were judged in a survey to be one of the most dangerous beaches in America. And that was clearly nonsense and was debunked by our public information officer. And now we're in the top 10 most desirable beaches in the country. Which leads me to the conclusion we should really be very careful with how we absorb and process media. Clearly, we're somewhere in the middle there. And I would say on the safety aspect, we have made enormous strides. This council, this administration, our first responders, our charitable partners, we are a much safer beach as a result of the way we responded to tragedy last year. And water rescue, the fire, et cetera. And we also are a community that is still growing at near exponential rates. So if you tried to go anywhere the other day during the rain, yeah, you had a lot of fun too. I mean, it was just gridlocked. That is not going away. We are continuing. If you look at the data and the reports, which are online, you'll see that we're still averaging almost 3% year-over-year growth. And of course, we're still at the beginning of mainland development, which leads me to council has made a commitment to expand capacity with staff, the economic development officer, assistant manager. Clearly, we need to retool and we need to prepare. We missed the curve the last time out. We talked about managing growth 5-6 years ago. Nothing happened. It is clearly going to happen in a very dramatic way, and I think that we are much better prepared. And I, for one, am comforted by the fact that we have, I think, the capacity to at least respond to and hopefully shape some of that. So do we have challenges in infrastructure, environment, economic? Of course, every community does, but ours are more acute because of the rate that we're growing. And we do want to preserve the small town feel, at the same time accommodate the growth and expansion, which we cannot stop by law, and it will not stop. It can only be, hopefully, shaped in a constructive way. So that's my report. Happily, I pass the baton back to you, Madam Mayor.
Jill.
Yeah. I'd like to second everything Mr. Bach said. Our recreation department, our staff, our police officers, our first responders, our public works department, everybody did a phenomenal job. I stayed at the house away from all the traffic and away from all the happenings. As Bach said, we are growing. There's nothing we can do about it. People have found us. We are no longer that secret from 20 years ago. It's not going to happen. So I, for one, welcome Hallie and look forward to all the great things.
I go to a lot of advisory board meetings just to listen, to hear what the members of the advisory board's working on and what they've got going on. I appreciate what Paul DeVay just came up and said from the Parks and Rec Department, that he's going to let us know on a monthly basis what they're working on. I'd like to see all the advisory boards give us reports so we would know what they're working on and where they are and what their status is. That's exciting. That's a very good start. Ocean Ed Center, Wayne, yesterday I was at the Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting, and Wayne commented They do need some volunteers at the Ocean Ed Center. So if you're looking to volunteer somewhere, that's a fun place to be. My wife used to volunteer there. I asked town manager earlier this evening about Moby mats. A gentleman contacted me and asked if he could buy a Moby mat in memory of his wife. Town manager said, give me the guy's name and contact information, and I'll follow up with him. So if you're thinking about something like that, wow, that's a wonderful idea to be thinking about. Also thinking about, I would like for us in the future, whenever Moffett and Nichols comes back to talk to us, I think it's time to talk about jetties and groins and see where we are on feasibility of that. I think that's time. Lastly, yes, Councilman Bach, safety, security, our infrastructure, wow, everybody goes over and above expectations. I was so pleased with Chief Morris's checkpoints, and he sent a statement out of all the different stops they had and what types of people they stopped. And before they got on the island, people that had outstanding warrants and DUI on the spot and no driver's license. Our police are doing their job. So a lot of things are working well. I'm proud of Oak Island. That's all I have.
I cannot be nearly as eloquent as my prior council members, but I have a couple of things. I live on the golf course, the par 3, and it was amazing how busy it was. And the greens and everything are coming back up. It's been really beginning to look good. I think it's a good future for it. The other thing I'd like to mention is parking. I've received several people saying that they're commenting the parking company. Is something up? What's going on with that? You know, it's nice that I hear that some positive stuff is going on. There is one other negative part of the parking, though. My family was here for the holidays, and my daughter-in-law and I don't get along too well. And the fact that she got a ticket didn't help that relationship at all. She thought I should fix it. You know, can I do that? No?
You can pay it for her. That would be a good father-in-law.
You'd make a good match. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Just quickly, I'll ditto all of the July 4th comments. Hats off to everyone for pulling that off again this year. We always seem to get it done, so thank you to everyone. The report that I really want to give is July 6th, last Thursday, was another Cape Fear RPO meeting, and this one was local at the Brunswick County Administration Building, so I was able to attend in person. Great opportunity. Matt was there as well, and it gave me a chance to take a few minutes on their agenda and explain to them the importance and the urgency that we have here in the town of Oak Island with pedestrian safety and pedestrian accessibility. And so they are aware of the projects that are stacking up that we're interested in pursuing. But I think we gave them another little boost of energy, and they understand now some of the urgency around safety concerns and making sure that people are able to move as pedestrians freely and safely to get to amenities that they would like to get to. We also talked a little bit about traffic and ways that traffic can be improved. Greenways came up. I was so excited. Many of you probably are aware during the 2021 election campaign, I talked about greenways. For 2 years, I've been talking about greenways, and now finally, the NCDOT was in the room, and they were like, greenways are amazing. And I'm like, I am so glad you said that. And so we went back and talked about the feasibility study that this council adopted in January of 2022, and they took lots of notes. And so you're also maybe aware we put some money in the paving contract for this year to try to see if we could get the first segment or section of that completed. So we got our fingers crossed on that. And the state was very excited to find out that we set money aside, because you tell NCDOT you've set aside some money, all of a sudden they get excited and they want to come partner with you. So let's hope for a good year this year. Let's hope for a start on a greenway, and let's hope the state partners with us and we get that done. Thank you.
Mayor, there is one thing, if you'll allow me. I was just reminded that none of us mentioned our very own hometown hero. Walker Jenkins was drafted by the Minnesota Twins Major League Baseball team right out of high school last Sunday night.
In the first round.
Exactly. A very outstanding young man, very polite, very professional. He'll do great things.
To follow up on that, Councilwoman Bell, I have to talk baseball, come on.
I can't believe you didn't mention it.
Well, I told his dad the other day that he gets to live under the same roof as someone like a Kobe Bryant or a Mickey Mantle. Walker Jenkins is a phenom, so I'm proud of him.
Wish him the best of luck.
I should have.
I also helped to celebrate our 24th birthday and attended a number of beach day events, and they got recruited for judging the sandcastle contest. They didn't know what a mistake they had made. Was able to kick off the July 4th celebrations at the concert in partnership with Southport's team, and represented the town at the shoreline preservation meeting. The Lockwood Folly dredge has been completed, and the dredge has been sent back home. They're very proud of what they've been able to do by creating a straight path out to the ocean without disturbing any of the sunken ships that are out there. The rec committee asked me to serve as a liaison, a pseudo liaison, since we formally don't have them, for them, and I agreed to do so at least until the new council is seated in December. And
Isn't that something that should be voted on by council?
yes. We haven't done that to date. Bill has been going to those meetings. They just asked for someone, I mean, we can certainly vote on
I
it.
actually thought we had appointed Bill to that. No.
No, ma'am, no action was taken.
I'm sitting in, basically. Happy to do so in an unofficial capacity. And then working with Mr. Kelly on setting the groundwork needed for the rec center, and he'll have a brief report for that later. So that's the end of my report. Moving on, is there anything to be removed from the consent agenda? We have 2 sets of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Administrative reports. Mr. Kelly.
Yes, ma'am. Again, Mike, to pull up the paid parking. Yes, we had asked Jim from Auto to provide us some data to where we're at currently.
The town of Oak Island currently provides about 1,300, reckon I got this. Sorry, 1,366 parking spaces across 65 of our beach accesses, street ends, and then we have the two large parking lots, East Dolphin and Ocean Drive. Paid parking program is Auto Connect. It's actually been going on for about 102 days or since April 1st. The information presented tonight is just a sort of a snapshot from June 1st to June 30th. And this will be posted online probably tomorrow. But basically what you see is where we're at. Net payment to the town of Oak Island for the month of June was $209,692 is what we made off of that. You can see the permits sold, the permit rates, gross sales, percentage of sales, and percentage of revenue. And that goes through there and shows what it is. The gross sales was a 299. Of course, we get the 70%. That's the 209,692. Excuse me. Sensitive today. June parking report. Here's sort of the trends. The very first one that you see at the bottom, it says 9914. I was checking Jim's math. That should be 3780. But you see it's totaling up 1 hour sales, 2 hour sales, 3 hour, and goes on down the list. One thing that we had Jim go back when we hired him, he had a collection agency employed at that time. They were having a problem getting some out of state. He let them go, and he does now have another collection agency. And the only problem that we're having now is the state of Virginia, getting the information from them to be able to file for the people who have not paid for their violations. But you can see through the April, May, and June how things sort of went up. Then year to date, you can see so far year to date, we have collected 535,374. And then you can see what we had for May and April and March. March was the big number for the season permit passes that we sold. And then he gave us some overview numbers. Total vehicles parked, 31,313. Residents, council had asked for us to be able to monitor how many residents were using the parking spots to see what we needed to do, and so we can keep up with each one of the lots on a daily basis. You see 5,850 residents, 195 is the average per day. And then we had a max day of 477 so far. Visitors, Saturdays are our big days when we pick up about 1,000 extra people on Saturday. And you can see what that is. Violations, another thing, I asked the chief last year what they had wrote, and was it 800 or 300? 800 violations. And year to date, we're at 1,338. 857 of those people did not pay. 481 didn't park in a valid space. And then the note that he said sort of trends with Holden Beach and other beaches when he started paid parking. The rate of these are starting to go down, so people are starting to park into the spaces and learn the program. It was down from to 4.27. Last month, it was around 7%. So everything that we're doing, the extra signs, I know when we started the program, we didn't want signs put everywhere. So we didn't put signs everywhere, and then we came back, we needed more signs. Scott's people have been putting signs up almost on a daily basis. The parking bumpers, people said they didn't understand what a yellow parking bumper was. So then we had to do drawings to show what yellow parking bumpers were. And there's all kinds of things we've had to do to make people park into the right spots. And needless to say, they'll still walk down to a spot, take a picture, pay to park, and then park their car down the road somewhere. And so they get another ticket for parking in a non-valid parking space. So those are the kind of things that we're still dealing with. But a reminder, this is the first year, and council set aside the annual report will be in October, and then they will take up recommendations and everything that we've been getting from residents. 69th Street, 64th Street, low-speed vehicles, golf carts. We've been having people ask to add additional spaces here and there. We've added some, and we're continuing to add some, and then we'll reevaluate everything at the end. We're coming up with a designated parking dimensions for a golf cart. We sort of tried one little thing. Everybody said, no, they're only 2 and 4 seaters. But as soon as we say that, then 6 seaters park there, and then the rear of their vehicle actually is in the roadway. So we're going to have to try to figure out
how to monitor those. We're just going to have to do parallel parking on the side of the roads. But that's something we're continuing to monitor. And as I said, Jim will be making his final report to y'all in October, and then council can start the next year's progression from there. Any other questions?
Any questions for Mr. Kelly?
Job well done.
Now we got Mr. Sir? Oh, we did get the legislation to be able to use the parking as we see needed. So working with Scott's people, we're starting to lay out where we're going to put porta-johns, more foot washes and those kind of things for the amenities from the monies that we're getting from the parking, and start laying that out for next year as well. Moby mats, access points, and those kind of things, monies for those can be utilized for that. So we are starting to look at next year where we can start spending these dollars to get some amenities and improvements through the parking. Thank you, Mr. Hammond.
And the foot washes won't be inside the porta johns. They're-
Not church related.
He said that kind of quickly, so.
Thank you, David.
Mr. Hatton's got the financial report.
Thank you, David. It's a very brief financial, just some financial highlights. It's not a report at this point. As you well know, June 30th passed us, and so another year, seems like we just did last year's, was finishing last year's audit, and here we are doing another one. So I wanted to just give a quick update on where we were at the end of June 30th, 2023. Most of the, I won't say most of these, but some of these numbers will change as we process the paperwork into the system. Not saying, we've got the money has already gone to the bank, but we need, the paperwork will be processed in the next week or so. Ad valorem tax levy, what we collected year to date was $7,983,717, compared to last year, $7,706,140. So we have a 3.6% increase on ad valorem taxes for last year. And for Ms. Bell's, our collection rate, as of right now, I did a quick calculation, is sitting right at 99%. So that has gone back up to where I like to see it. As, with the turmoil and the changes we had downstairs, I'm very pleased with that collection rate.
Kudos to you and your tax collection staff.
Thank you very much. It's them, not me. I just collect the money, I just count the money, they collect it. Sales tax, as I've been saying all along, we collected $3,767,505 in sales tax for the year. That is in relation to last year, $3,257,000, or a growth of 16.3%. It trended just like we thought it would over the last few years, in the state of North Carolina told us it would, so I'm very pleased with that. Water revenue was up 11.8%, which, makes sense because of the building and the new homes that we have here on the island. Sewer utility revenue was up 2.7%. Now, the tap fees for both water and sewer are down from the prior year, but we expected that because, we are still building, but not as much as we were. Sewer district fee, we've collected $7,187,500, and that goes for the debt of the wastewater system. Solely, that's all that money is used for. Accommodation tax revenue, it did go up a little bit. The 3% was $2,801,814, and that's up about 1% over the prior year. The 2% went up to $1,868,437, and again, that's pretty much about 1%. As you recall, we said it would grow 1 to 1.5% each year, we thought. So it's trending after the first year or so. Beach and nourishment project revenue, this is the piece of the ad valorem tax that is designated for beach nourishment. We collected $1,730,216. That is $179,000 over the prior year, or 11.6%, which is good. That is the money that can go straight to the beach nourishment. Stormwater revenue. This is one we have worked on the stormwater system over the last few years, trying to get a better handle on the revenues as well as the expenses. And I wanted the collection stormwater for the year, this year was $1,055,243 compared to last year's $680,000. Stormwater has been, over the last few years, just, it was just not holding its own. And we had to supplement it from general fund. So when I look at this is taxpayer money that we don't have to send over to support stormwater, which is always good. Solid waste, when we're working on it, the collection, $1,730,000, that was up 11%. The pier, the passes, merchandise, and retail is pretty much the same as it was in the prior year. Rental on the restaurant, the town made $75,000 on that. 801 rental, that we rented, Elisa did $97,000 for the year. Wish it was $97 million. Total revenue, $562,000 for the pier complex. Par 3 golf course, got a little bit of a good news here. Green fees went up from $105,000 to $121,000. So again, that's good. Memberships went up about $5,000 to $34,000. Cart fees went up $14,000 to $46,000. But I still have to transfer funds from the general fund. That's a given. As you well know, to get a golf course profitable is tough, very tough. It's the reason a lot of them close year after year. But it is holding its own and it's doing better. So
It's in great shape.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
we just hope that it stays in good shape, people start playing, but we'll always have to supplement it. That's just a given.
Part of the Parks and Rec
Yeah,
system.
it's just part of the Parks and Rec, exactly.
Mr.
But it's a
Hatton,
good amenity.
these numbers going up, though, means possibly next year there will be less transferred from the general fund.
Possibly, yes. If they don't need to buy a lot of equipment and, knock on wood, something bad doesn't happen.
Got you. Thank you.
And then in your little packet that I gave you there, I've got 2 pie charts on revenue for the general fund and expenses for the general fund. Again, I want to emphasize, these numbers will possibly change as we go along in the closing process, get towards the audit. But ad valorem for the general fund is 44% of our total revenue. Sales tax is 17% of our total revenue in the general fund. ABC board is 3%. Zoning permits, 4%. The rest of them are smaller than that to make up the general fund. Expenses, I'll go through that quickly. Police department makes up 24% of the general fund. Fire department, 19% of the general fund. Those 2 departments are, it costs a lot of money to operate both of those departments. And I must say, the 2 chiefs, I usually don't say anything good about either one of them, but they have done an admirable job over the last year or so, trying to hold their expenses in line. And other than that, that's pretty much it. The rest of them are 5 to 10% of the total general fund. And that's it for my report.
As always, good job.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Hatton. I appreciate the format.
Yes, very informative.
A few more things, Madam Mayor. We were talking about the pier house and, or the pier complex. We had 2,931 people come fish for the month of June. So that's some good numbers. We had 7 citation fish issued off the pier for the month of June. 801 events. She is doing a great job. We are full from October, November, December. And then going into next year, or 2024, she already has 12 events scheduled, from birthday parties to weddings, anniversaries, and those kind of things. So she is still doing a great job there. And now she's part-time, but even though she works probably full-time. Beach Services Unit, a little bit for the police back there. They are doing a great job. Skip was talking about how many things that they do. When you sit there and you have 3 people riding on the golf carts, there's a mass number of changes there. Sand dune discussions, verbal warnings or written citations, 368. Dogs at large, 135, so we still have a little bit of a dog problem every now and then. Glass containers, 130. Holes on the beach, Skip was talking about that, it was 360 holes on the beach that they've had to handle. Emergency blocking beach access, Skip gave you a large number. Chief gives you 678. So we're almost to 1,000 people that we've had to tell to get out of the beach accesses. And then the filled in the holes by this group, they have actually filled in 67 holes. So Chief, we appreciate that. And then the fire chief, they went and filled some of the holes the other day as well because staff was out doing other things. 911 calls for dune complaints, 12. So that was better than before. So hopefully we'll be getting those worked out. But that's just a very brief sort of overview on what he has. Building, we're averaging about 16 homes for the first 6 months. 15.5, I've rounded up to 16. But 16 homes is sort of what we're looking at. We were trending. We were looking at probably 18 to 20 homes, so we're just a little bit below what we were recommending or looking at through the budget, but I think we'll sit there and things are starting to go back up for the last 2 months. And that's our report, except thanks Heather and her group for Beach Day and those kind of things, and the chief and the fire chief and the water rescue for everything they did over the holidays as well.
Absolutely. Thank you all for all that you do. I've been asked that we take a break. At this point in time, can we keep it to 5 minutes? We still have a fair amount of agenda to cover.
So stand in recess.
Yes. Welcome back, everyone. We'll begin this next part of the meeting with old business. And our first item up for consideration are the next steps in acquiring or commissioning public art. Hallie Willis, inform us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm going to walk you through a presentation. Here we go. So this is about a mural program recommendation as part of your public art proposal. So the purpose would be to create public art in the town of Oak Island that will enhance the town's aesthetic appeal, create a sense of pride among residents, and foster a strong community identity. A mural program would enrich the cultural fabric of the town, boost tourism, and contribute to a more vibrant and connected community. So step one in this proposed process would be scouting all of the possible locations for public art and having a database for that that includes who the property owner is and all their contact information. We'll look at how much public access does each location have, what's the wall material for murals, and potential for future activation at that site. So we can really pick the best locations. Step two would be some public engagement. We would like to hold a few events and do some creative outreach with residents to collect ideas on theme, on colors, on what they want for murals, what they would like to see, and do some really fun and exciting community engagement events. And this would ideally be to gather all of that at one time at the beginning, and then hopefully we can pull more than one project out of these ideas. So step 3 would be to organize a smaller group of decision makers on after the public engagement meetings. And it'd be 3 to 5 members of staff and other stakeholders, some of the local arts groups. And this smaller group would make decisions on budget, artists, some contracts and timelines and things, and locations. Step 4 would be to work on the design, so work with the artist to get a design, and they would be given the themes and ideas from the community input sessions. So we'd be using what we took from those engagement sessions and given to the artists, who will then come up with a design, and the smaller group again would work to choose a design or make any edits and work with the artist in that way so we can see what we're going to do before they start painting. So step 5 would then be to paint it. We would work with the artist to schedule a timeline and paint the mural. This could also, there's kind of a range of ways that we could do it. Ones that were more community painted, so something like a paint by numbers where multiple residents come and work together to paint it, all the way to an artist is commissioned to hire and they paint their art. So we could do different projects within that range. And then step 6 would be important to have an unveiling or an event surrounding each mural that is completed, so we can bring everyone that worked together on it and unveil it and have a nice event to celebrate each one. And the last part was from some feedback from council on what you would like to see. This is a program that would allow us to create a public art trail and put it on our website so that people could go and see a map of every piece of public art located within the town of Oak Island, where it is, a little blurb about the art, and maybe you can get it from the artist and have the artist's name and everything. This would be a really nice way to create that selfie trail that you're looking for. So they're all in one place and accessible to residents and tourists, and we can promote it. And this is the last piece. Any questions about this program?
No, thank you for coming forward with a process. And I would hope that eventually we could marry it to the Greenway project that Councilman Martin has been championing for quite a while. It would make sense. And my other thought about it is that because we have so many public parks, that would also be a good initial starting point. Some of the parks are distinctive unto themselves right now, but others not so much, and creating the art trail, I think, is a very good idea, so thank you.
Would that include like the town buildings or just commercial?
In the step 1 part of it, I will include every public buildings and private commercial buildings, just not residential. And in my thinking, the more community-based it is, goes on more of the public-facing walls, and the things that are more commissioned will be in the more visible, highly visible areas. So, but that we can take those in the process and see.
Thank you.
Hallie, speak about the panels you were talking about instead of the actual on a building.
Yeah, so another option, because in just the, driving around and looking at walls, I think we might be limited on the perfect wall of where we are. So one option is for artists or anyone to paint on panels that can then be attached to the wall as part of a mural. So I just want to keep that in mind as we're doing our scouting, that it doesn't necessarily have to be painted directly on the wall. So that may allow us to get it in some more unique places that may have more impact.
Or to auction it off to put money into an art fund. to pay
Certainly,
artists
if you
yeah.
don't paint it on a building, it's a piece of something that can be removed and moved later. That's something you're interested in.
So in your group of 4 or 5, you want to incorporate the Oak Island Art Guild and the people around town with that type of talent?
Yes, I would
Or your think tank?
imagine it would be a mix of staff and, like, I know, for instance, the Oak Island Art Guild has a mural committee, so I think working with them to be those decision makers would be smart. But I think they'll probably rise up in the community engagement process who those people are.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Hal.
Thank you.
Do we need a general consensus for her to move forward? It says here if we approve, but there's no formal motion, so.
Let's make
I
that-
heard all positive comments, so.
Do you,
The motion, she move forward.
Second.
all in favor? There you go, unanimous.
Sheila raised her hand, I'm pretty
I
sure she
did.
did, yeah.
I did. I did.
Second under old business is discussion of the rec center project update. And Mr. Kelly, I believe, has taken this.
Yes, ma'am. Staff has been contacting other municipalities as well as researching the web and other sources for the processes that others have followed for the recreation and community center projects that are around us in our state. There's still a lot to be determined on which way council would like to proceed. Council and staff could take on the task and work through the needs and suggestions of the community, evaluate repurposing or remodeling the current facilities, or look at possibly new construction to house some or all of the services underneath one roof line. Public involvement is our main priority, and to make sure all needs are looked at for both the younger and older generation for years to come. The town could also hire a professional firm to come in and perform some or all these tasks to get us to design, permitting, administration, and construction, sort of similar to what we had done with the skate park, which I know is a smaller scale project, but it'll be sort of the same concept, and that sort of worked good with the community, and it kept everybody involved, kept council involved in it, all the way through the construction process. This is a large project which will have many moving parts and decisions to be made, and the needs to be evaluated thoroughly by this council. So next month, we'll see where we get, talking with council members and see where they want to go. And sort of September, try to bring something forward for council to decide on or to approve to move forward with.
Questions?
My comment is, thank you. Skate park was a slow process, but it arrived. And this is a positive step forward. So, thank you for taking the lead to get us off center to get going. Yeah.
Well, there is a lot to it, just like everybody's discussed. We discussed it through the budget cycle. There were several ideas thrown out during the retreats. Mr. Martin had to look at one way, and Charlie and Sheila and you and Bach have also brought back other items for us to look at. And it all gets down to where the involvement on a daily basis, where we need to be. There's professionals out there that can look at things and give numbers to council when they're at the podium. You may have a square footage cost or something. It'd be something we'd have to go back and find out. But if they had somebody like that, then we could have them answer questions, and they would be here, they would have a point of contact, and we'd work it out for them, just like we did the skateboard. They brought back conceptual drawings to council. Council looked at it and said, all right, we'd also like for you to go back and see what else they would like to add. And then we started to have to looking at the finance issues, sort of where we want to go and what we want to do going forward. So it is a time-consuming process. I know people want to get it done, but the fortunate thing is we have a rec center that's open and functioning. We have a community building right now, even though it's small, is functioning. So it's not like they're out on the streets or anything. We're able to do things. We just need to get something for the future of the town.
Good deal.
I would agree. Thank you, David.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think it's been incredibly frustrating that we just have not made any progress. I think that's a collective sentiment up here on this dais. And we have tried mightily but not progressed. So what's being proposed, I'll just, for the record, it's not typical project management. It's not how you do it. Typically, you manage your own inputs needs assessment, you identify broad goals, and then expertise comes in when you're moving to the actual final design phase. But I'm willing to accept any kind of movement at this point, and we're going to move forward by outsourcing it, okay. But bear in mind that, our best estimate, per the last architect, you're 2 to 3 years away, maybe longer, right? And that may or may not include furnishing it. It may just be the shell, the structure. And we still have questions about one space, two space, there are differing points of view here. Renovate, build new, create two distinct facilities with distinct purposes. All that has to be resolved. And we've been unable to do it. So, yeah, I guess this is the best course forward, although it's, from my point of view, I would consider it somewhat atypical, but it may be time for atypical.
I would just quickly agree with Councilmember Bach, and I appreciate the input that council will have some either discussions or look at some more topics prior to maybe September. My only concern would be that is organized in a manner that encourages time for council members to continue considering suggestions that we've made, maybe even having some people available as a sounding board to us in that process before we get to more formalizing of plans and project management, as John referred to it. So I'm hoping the next couple of months, our interaction is, I guess I would say, more productive.
And we would hope that as well. We've got sort of some questions and stuff that still needs to be gone around and sort of weighed out and answered. But this is no mean trying to take council out of any kind of thing. The council would be the ones who hire the firm. Council will be the one who says we agree with whatever's proposed. But it is just something to get things going if we can't get going ourselves.
I agree.
We need to open the door before we can walk through it.
Well, there is some basics, excuse me, there is some basics that y'all brought up before that I believe y'all can work out so we can give the vendor even a starting chance to show what we do want.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Kelly, for putting that together.
New business. Consideration of creation of a business advisory board. Hallie.
Welcome back, Hallie.
All right, I have another presentation as well.
Hallie's been busy.
So I would like to recommend reestablishing the Business Advisory Board, Citizen Advisory Group. And I have the clicker. The purpose of the Business Advisory Board would support the town goals by offering recommendations and advice to town council on supporting business in Oak Island, creating a platform for businesses to address concerns and raise issues, fostering a business-friendly environment in Oak Island, and providing input and recommendation on the town's economic development strategy. The recommended membership would be 7 current business owners or commercial property owners, with no more than 3 of those members being real estate sales or rentals. 2 full-time residents who are not current business owners, but may have related experience and interest in the board. 1 ex officio, non-voting representative from the chamber membership that would be appointed by their board of directors, and then 1 non-voting member from economic development. This board would be very instrumental in helping establish economic development, as this is a new department in the town. They're crucial to helping understand the business environment and being able to help develop the strategy that will happen, and having those close business owners at hand and able to get in touch with you all as well on other issues facing council. Any questions?
So what would the work product of this group be?
So
What would you hope
typically,
them to produce?
usually I would say it would be letters of recommendation to council on certain issues that were happening in, say, the planning board is usually the one, or if they had another recommendation, they could also do things like events. The previous board had done that in the past and hosted certain events. I would like to see them do a shop local campaign and be involved with that. And also, really, it will be the first year in helping develop the strategy and the work of Economic Development Department again, since it's new, so.
So you would be more of a catalyst for bringing businesses together and as a form of a shared community.
Yeah, maybe liaison would be a great word to use for this. Business owners are such a direct connect in the community to help people that, their customers that shop with them. And for them to be able to connect together and connect back to y'all and have that established, that they're able to do that regularly is very important. And I think especially in doing economic development work, crucial to that effort.
So, all well and good. I think, the business community has desired this kind of a process for quite some time. They sometimes chafe that the chamber isn't paying enough attention to them, and I know you've reached out to the chamber and you're coordinating with them. But I want to give you a chance to respond to a concern that was expressed earlier. And I've spent a good part of the last 5 years fighting to have someone like you come. And so I want to take you up to 15,000 feet, beyond this first step, which is an important one, but it's a first step. So your job description is daunting, right? So, and what I'm sitting here thinking that in the next decade, there'll be more people on the mainland than on the island. We're going to double in population if this trend line continues. So all of that is going to involve economic development in some really critical ways. So recruiting businesses, establishing high-end ratables if possible, revitalizing downtown, coming up with a long-term plan, a strategic plan for business, coordinating the efforts on the mainland for infrastructure, and traffic, interfacing with a variety of agencies. And I could go on. There are a lot of really high-level things that you're going to do. I'll give you the opportunity to just talk about one that your preliminary thinking on any one of those topics that's in your job description.
Absolutely. I guess probably step one is what we're already jumping into, but the community engagement, the background information gathering before the strategy development is going to come as step two. And luckily, it's timed out well with the comp plan coming up soon to be redone. So it'll be great to get all that information happening at the same time. We'll be able to work it in together. And to your point of it kind of being involved in everything, that will also be a great time to see where economic development can touch on all the other departments. And it's not me doing all the work, but how do the departments we already have work together with economic development? And what are they already doing that is economic development? How do we just look at it in a different light? So definitely year one, it's going to be planning, community engagement, laying the groundwork, making sure we're ready for step two. Great.
Yeah, I don't think anyone expects you to have a 60-day plan to save the world. At least nobody up here does. But I think one way that I would think about it is that there are all of these pieces of the organization working on segments that they're specialized in, but you will be at the vital center of the economic overlay, and virtually everything becomes an economic issue at some point, right? And there are going to be, unless something dramatically changes, 15,000 more housing units on the mainland, and traffic and people, and there will be retail venues out there, and so on, and so on and on it goes. And you're going to be able to hopefully coordinate as much of that as possible. That's the vision that I have, and I think that you're saying you want to look, listen, and learn the first year. That makes perfect sense to me. So thank you for that.
Hallie, am I hearing you say that step one is more so to retain the businesses that we have now and accommodate the businesses we have now to allow them to be more effective?
That's a good point, thank you. A lot of the work of economic development is retaining existing businesses. I think most people jump to business attraction, but it's so much more effective to keep your businesses that you already have and help those businesses grow. So yes, that is main goal every day.
And part of that main goal is when a new rule comes in that adversely affects a business, fight their fight or what have you. Be aware of what is needed by the existing businesses. That may hurt us, that may help us.
Absolutely, and for small business owners especially, they don't always have the time to be clued in at every town council meeting and know what's going on or know to look in the newspaper for notices. So an advisory board would be really crucial in that, and people being able to flag, hey, I had to go through that when I opened my small business, or I've had this issue before, I know that would affect this business, this business, this business. And, oh, I have that connection, I know they've been through it. Let's make sure that they know what's going on, and it would be very crucial to that, yes.
I like the idea of the community involvement and the engagement rather than the Facebook rumor mill. I mean, then this way, a portion or an advisory board of the businesses would actually, anything that was coming before council, they would actually be able to, as you said, input, give their opinion of how it could affect other things around us.
Mm-hmm. And one part of that I think is important too is the resident membership of this, which wasn't in the previous one, but I've added in here as a change. But I think it's important if there's expertise here that, may not be an owner at this point, but has the interest and has the expertise and wants to be involved, that's another way that just a resident could contribute.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really, like we had talked last week, and I really like the element of, I call it mentoring, and it was brought out briefly about other business owners sharing their experiences, either onboarding or starting or growing their business, and how they can interact with future entrepreneurs or existing small businesses that may be looking for new concepts or figuring things out. So I really like the mentoring aspect that this could bring to the table as well. To her point, if we can retain what's here and grow what's here, we encourage local residents to stay. Right, the kids don't grow up and leave. The kids stay and maybe start a business one day, or go into the family business or whatever mentoring opportunities are available to them through this business advisory board. So that's what I get excited about is retaining businesses and retaining our people, our assets. Right.
I've said all along, businesses are affected by our decisions, and they're hoping that we don't cause them harm. It's good they get a voice.
So will you take applications for membership on this board?
We vote on it.
Yes, it would work like the other citizen advisory boards where they would apply, and you would decide. And one thing that is in your packet is about, in the start, that initially members would be appointed so that approximately 1/3 of the terms would expire every year. So like a staggered initial terms.
To show you that I read what all you said to us, on the bottom of page 49, I would like to differ with you a little bit on attendance of an appointed member. 3 or more consecutive regular meetings or 4 meetings within a 12-month period loses his or her status as a member. Absences due to sickness, death, or emergencies of like nature shall be regarded as approved absences. Unfortunately, both my parents have passed, but if my mother were alive and she were to be sick, I would run to her bedside and try to make intelligent decisions on her behalf, and I might be gone 4 or 5 months. And if that were the case, I wouldn't be doing a very good job to the board they appointed me to, because I had something far more important to me. Everybody has an excuse to miss meetings, but if somebody misses 4 meetings a year, even if mama's sick, they're not doing a very good job being on the board.
I think that attendance policy is actually in all of our boards, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, I think we need to provide, probably need to provide across all the boards a reasonable exception for
Yeah.
personal.
Well, Zoom calls, they can Zoom call in now that we have that set up.
Yeah, all right. But I think if you want to work on that, Councilman Kraft, we can add that, right? So,
Another thing I would add to that is, this board, I am recommending 7 business owners and 2, so that's 9 total people, and that is probably a bigger board, but again, because of the nature of business owners who have their own full-time job to run and not a lot of free time, I do think there's probably more absences than other boards maybe.
Especially in the summertime.
That was the intentional of adding a few more members. Thank you.
Not a question for you, Holly, but for council. She started out saying reestablish, so that implies that at one point there was a business advisory board or council. Is anyone on this council active in how that board facilitated, how it worked? I mean, the good, the bad, the pros, the cons. Does anybody have any experience with that prior business advisory group?
It had to have been 8 years ago or more.
Okay, so prior to
Since-
you and
yeah.
Charlie, yeah.
It was dissolved around 2013.
I will add, and I'm not from here, so this is only for reading the few minutes that I did, but tourism was also a part of that purview of that board, and it looked like a lot of their work was more event-based. And I think if you don't have someone on the board that can do that, a lot of times when that person's gone, it's hard to keep that up. So I don't know if that was the case, but that was what I got from reading their last year's minutes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the time you took to go look up some of their old minutes.
Lisa sent them to me, made it easy.
I'm informed by Madam Clerk that we need a motion, so I'm going to read the suggested motion to create the Business Advisory Board and to begin the application process as presented.
Second.
In favor?
Very much so.
Thank you, Willis.
Thanks, Hallie.
Good job.
Madam Mayor, if I may, just on page 2,
Yes?
and I don't know if this is the proposed charter. It's actually page 49 of the agenda packet, but it's page 2 of the Oak Island Business Advisory Board documentation. I would rather the third heading down meetings, the very last sentence reads, "A quorum is at least one more than the number absent of the appointed members." I'd rather just say a quorum is 4 or more.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we adopted this as their charter. I know that we're moving forward with
Sorry,
it.
and I didn't hear you. Did you say 4 or more? Because it's a 9-member board.
It's at 9? I thought it was 7.
9.
Okay, 5. 5, sorry. Lawyers aren't good in math. So if it's 9, then 5. That's the only comment I would make on the chartering document.
I think if there's council consensus to make that change.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we don't need a motion.
Yeah, Ms. Stites, I wasn't sure if the motion encompassed adopting this as their official.
My impression was it did, just because it was the motion was to approve it as presented. so-
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
No.
Next item, proposed text amendment, section 28.
Did we vote on that?
Don't have to, I don't think. Do we have to vote on the,
No,
Yeah.
No, just a consensus. Yeah, we're fine.
Census.
yeah, proposed text amendment for section 28 through 44. Matt?
Over here, I think Mike's, there we go. Got my microphone up. This is a proposed text amendment to Chapter 28 of the Code of Ordinances for the town. Town staff had reviewed the general statutes, and last year they changed the, what local governments can charge for local ordinance violations, and they capped local ordinance violations for parking and traffic violations at $50. So as I'm sure you're all well aware, when we adopted our new parking ordinances last year, there was some fines associated with that in the ordinance. When we reviewed them, it appeared that they did not, they were not consistent with the state statutory requirements. So this ordinance would just simply change those to be pegged to the fee schedule and amend the fee schedule to match that statutory cap of $50. Once again, this is something that the state hasn't really given us any leeway on when it comes to parking and traffic violation. And that's local ordinance violations. If you violate a state law or something like that, you still have those fines associated with them. That's right.
No problem.
And that's all I had for you. Mercifully, no slides. So.
State mandated it,
Yeah.
there's really not a whole
I'll make a
lot of
motion
choice.
to approve the proposed amendment and fee schedule.
Second.
All in favor?
I'm sorry, is that also to the text amendment to the ordinance as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All,
Did you do that?
yep.
You already did that. I missed it.
You voted yes.
Oh, thank you.
Go on, Matt.
Fine job, Mayor, go ahead.
Next is consideration of amendment, section 22-12, relative to peers. Matt, back to you.
Yep, so the town has had some issue with people hanging hammocks, lines, various other things from the support members of the Oak Island Town Pier. When we reviewed the ordinance, it was not clear that that type of behavior was prohibited. Staff had some issue trying to get people to take hammocks and stuff down, and it was brought to our attention that it wasn't expressly prohibited. So this would simply reorganize that section and add in that provision that hanging anything from the pier is prohibited at the Oak Island Town Pier.
If I could also just note, I'm sorry, we did some reorganization in that section as well. If it's not highlighted in yellow, it didn't change, it just may have moved in location within that ordinance. And we will clean that up with our code company when we send it in.
In that 22-12, how did 2 or 3 of these things get put in there? No bare feet on the pier? Who enforces that?
We do.
No profanity?
We try.
And first, no swimming, surfing, or any other recreational activity within 250 feet of the pier? And we enforce that?
We do when they start coming underneath the pier.
Okay.
But there is no bare feet because of fishing hooks and everything else that are out there, so.
I was just surprised that was in there. So I must admit, I've walked on the pier barefooted, and I apologize.
You're lucky you didn't get a hook.
We'll put a picture of you in the pier house.
Matt, did you get that for code violation purposes?
I think it was 8 years ago.
Camera.
So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the amendments to section 22-12 as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Consideration of rules for use of pickleball courts. This goes to,
Heather.
okay. Did a skip jump there.
Heather?
Hey, Sheila, how's it going? Good evening, and thank you guys for your time. I, too, have a presentation. Hey, there it is. Okay.
You got the little area.
There we go. Okay, pickleball courts. An overall popular amenity has had an influx of visitors and residents that are new players. With so many trying to use the courts, a system of who is next is needed on the courts. To create cohesiveness, a widely used and accepted system would be preferred. At times, there are more than 24 players on the courts. The previous system of sitting on the benches to wait isn't working with more players than spots on the benches. And users are also starting to use the posted rules to stay on the courts during non-resident hours, even when the courts are full. Okay. The current methods, with pickleball being so popular, we know that there will be a wait, but the hope is to mitigate confusion on how to enter the games and what to do once you are out. There are several techniques already used during busy times on the court, and these are to hurry the games along and allow for more turnover, and obviously more people to play. Play one game to 11. This makes the game shorter and time on the court minimal. 4 on, 4 off. This moves players through faster, and when it's not as busy, winners stay in split. So the winning pair would play the next game, but then they would go to opposite or opposing teams. And while those are helpful to hurry things along, it doesn't actually help, as I mentioned, being able to say who's next. So for the last month, when all 6 courts are full, the paddle rack system has been used. It has been widely accepted by the Oak Island users, with a few that are hesitant. And it has also been a smooth transition for visitors. So as players come off of the court, or they'll shout court so that the next group knows that a court's available. I might have, sorry. This is important before we move on. While the previous techniques are good for fast turnover when followed, they don't address the confusion caused when there's no system in place for who is to play next, and the Recreation Advisory Board recommends the use of the paddle rack system. We went through several commonly used processes, 3 of which we just addressed that were already being used, but really the only one that would not have the need for staff to be out there regulating, which we don't have enough to do that, is the paddle system. And this is actually a picture of the paddle system that's currently out there. So you'll see that there's 4 paddles in green, 4 in yellow, 4 in red, and 4 in blue. And this will help with the next few slides. So as you're finishing, you yell court, and the next group grabs their paddles to come on. You put your paddle in the next empty slot if you are looking to join a game. So if you're there by yourself, if you're new, if you're a visitor, and you're just trying it out, you can go put your paddle in any open slot. But if you have a group of 4 that you're wanting to play with, you guys would just wait, you would just go to the next color that has all 4 slots open. So you might wait a little bit longer, but that is your choice. And then when you come off, you would do the same thing. You would wait till the next color that has 4 slots, and you can be able to play together if you wish to do that. And then the other single people or 2 pairs that will come up, they'll fill in the gaps on the other courts and the other colors. And when it's your turn to play, you shout blue group. Somebody from your group shouts blue group or whatever color you're in to alert your group. And this eliminates the need for everybody to be crowded over on one side of the court waiting, as the bench system had done. And then each player grabs their paddles, and then they move it to the next marker, or like the next, actually, you know, the next color where there's a space for all 4 paddles. And then this is a system that is actually used nationwide. So it's recognizable to guests for easy transition. This, so how will this work? How will people know this is what we're doing? So this is where updating the rules comes in. With the rules as currently are posted, no one is directed to a specific system, and this can lead to confusion, frustration, and confrontation. This isn't avoidable. These are things that will still happen, but a posted set of rules, including the paddle rack system, could help. Also, the rules as currently worded, it does allow for groups to stay on courts during open hours. And when I say open hours, I mean not during the citizen or like the resident hours. So you'll see in a moment, it's a little bit confusing. So people are monopolizing courts while others are waiting, and it's preventing residents and visitors from utilizing the courts. So currently, the rules posted are, the pickleball courts will be reserved for Oak Island residents and their guests, up to 3 guests, for organized round-robin play, April 1st through October 31st, Monday through Sunday, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. November 1st through March 31st, Monday through Sunday, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 5 to 8 p.m. All participants shall rotate in and out of play, affording all an equal opportunity to play. All other times, the pickleball courts will be open to all on a first-come, first-served basis. So they're taking that second, groups out there currently are taking the second rule, when it's not the 8 to 11 or 9 to 12 or 5 to 8. And they're saying, hey, it says, it's first come, first serve. And so some groups are staying out there and playing for 1, 2, 3 hours when the courts are full. And that's something that we're hoping to address in a rule change, if the council feels that it's important to address it. Went too fast again. So the proposed rules would hopefully be a little more clear. So the pickleball courts are available on a first-come, first-served basis. When courts are full and players are waiting, limit court use to one game to 11, 1 by 2, and the paddle rack system will be in use. All participants shall rotate in and out of play, affording all an equal opportunity. Number 2, the pickleball courts will be reserved for Oak Island residents and their guests, up to 3 guests, for organized round-robin play, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 5 to 8 p.m. daily. So in this rule, what we are proposing is to take out the dates and just have it be year-round, 7 to 11 and 5 to 8. There are players already out there at 7 a.m. And hopefully being proactive and not asking to change the rules or the sign again in 6 to 8 to 10 months. It's one reason we want to just go ahead and make it year-round, same time, so it's also a little less confusing. And then events scheduled by the town of Oak Island have priority. And then there were a few things that were added to the bottom. Players must be always respectful and courteous. Players who fail to will be required to leave. For questions or concerns, please call the Recreation Department, and for emergencies or injuries, please call 911. And I do want to make a comment about the second sentence there. Players who fail to will be required to leave. Currently, if we were to change the signage to be worded like this, there is no clear direction of who would ask them to leave, how they would be asked to leave, what the requirements would be in order for them to be asked to leave. So currently, if you were to accept it in this wording, we would require a little more direction. But if you were to wish us to take this line out, the sentence out completely, we would be amenable to that as well. And that was it. Do you have any questions for me?
The whole time you were reading this, I was thinking, who enforces this?
The pickleballers.
But
But would we ask pickleballers in the passion of play and to make these decisions? Oh, I don't know.
no. I just see all kinds of issues popping up. Mike Tyson didn't want to get off the court.
Right.
He probably won't get off the court.
Right.
Well, you're missing a real resource you have. The town manager's office looks
Oh.
right out over the court. So,
We could just add his cell number to the bottom there.
There you go.
I don't think I have a problem with that.
We do get to watch it, and we've seen the implementation of this. And it does work. At first, people didn't understand it, but then more and more as we've been watching, they're starting to pick up on it on a daily basis. As far as the, as Bill put it, the bully in the block, we don't have anything, skate park, we don't have it at the softball field, we don't have it at the playground, we don't have it at the splash pad. I mean, we can have that in there, and we hope that the people would leave, or if they're acting unruly, we don't want, 20 of them to walk over and tell a group of 4 they can't just stay on the court. And I don't know if that's something we want to publish or not to publish, but that's a choice of yours. But there is no way for us to enforce that. And it says if you have problems, call the rec center. If they call the rec center, then if it still continued when somebody got there, then staff would handle it at that point. Or they would call the police and have the police handle it at that point. But there's no way for us to regulate it on a daily basis. We just hope that they, just like everything we have, even the par 3 golf course, we hope everybody gets along together and plays and goes about their business and goes home, in a safe manner.
I can see it all working. I hope it works. But if there is that one problem, I hope somebody can contact the police department and say, there's a fight getting ready to break out. We need some help.
I mean, we're right across the parking lot there. And they have come over there and said it before, so. It's been a long time since that happened, but that was before the first rule change when Loman Scott was here, and that was the uglier days.
Well, the goal here is to use normative pressure and peer think to get a self-regulating system. And I dare say that the exception is probably going to be truly an exception. And if someone is really going to misbehave in front of the police department, then they deserve to be carted off. But more importantly, I think the rack system and the idea that we're sharing the court, and most activities are self-regulating, especially with adults. It's like basketball: winners stay on, and losers go off, and that's the way of the world, And so this is a modification of that. If you win, you can continue to a limited degree. But I think the rack system, how long has it been in place?
A month.
And is it working?
Yes.
Have you had to remove anybody?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
No, I'm hearing no.
I would leave it in there in case you have the 1 in 100, but it sounds like what you want is occurring. You have a self-regulating system where people are courteous and they respect other people, and you also have a set aside for residents. So that makes sense. We'll see.
And yesterday, didn't your advisory board vote unanimously to push this through?
To recommend, yes. The system and the rules.
Yeah.
So do you need a vote?
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
So it was delightful to see that there were specified times for Oak Island residents.
Yeah.
But if there's no enforcement occurring at the court, how do we know only Oak Island residents and their 3 guests are on the courts at those designated times? I mean, do pickleballers approach a new player and say, hey, show me your water bill? Or you just get out of here because this is reserved court time? I don't see that happening. I mean,
I think they're more in place in case residents aren't able to use the courts during those times. I do get emails and phone calls letting me know people park at the Dollar store, and then walk over, and then they're not residents, and that they're playing during those times. Unfortunately, it's not until after the fact. But I have not yet gotten a complaint where that happened, and it was at a detriment to the residents. Residents were able to play. And in fact, during the rec advisory board yesterday, one of the residents that plays regularly says, hey, if people come up, read the sign, a lot of them will turn around and walk away. And he's like, if I don't have 3 guests with me, I invite them to be my guests. So I think it is a tool if we need to say, hey, guys, it's just residents. And I mean, if it were to come to that and the exception were to happen where it was a problem, I mean, we might have to check for water bills. At the rec center, in order to get the resident rate, we ask for an ID or water bill.
At least you'll have the language in there if you have to tighten it up.
And if they're driving to the court, they'll have their license, hopefully. Or they have a different problem.
So we hope today it's just a deterrent and that people can read and comprehend and apply. Okay. My only concern is if there's no enforcement and we have these dedicated signs for residents, do we really need dedicated time for residents because there's no enforcement? You see what I'm saying? Like, if someone new walks up and says, I want to play pickleball and I'm a resident, but all the courts are full, what do the players do? I mean, is there do they just work it out? I guess they just work it out on their own. We have too many guests, so somebody needs to step off because now a resident's here and they want to play. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it doesn't sound like it's an issue today, but you did say you do get some emails about, these residents' times being reserved, which I fully support. My concern, I think, goes along with Councilman Kraft's concern is, well, how's it enforced, right? If we're going to have these reserved times, so Oak Island residents have access to the courts, I guess they're just policing themselves today, like regarding all the other rules, and maybe it's working, or at least I hope it's working, so.
They do police themselves. They know what times, I mean, when you go by and you'll look, you'll see when everybody's on the court. They all know that 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock is the early birds, and then 8 o'clock to 10 or 11 is the others. We see them parking, like she said, over the Dollar General. We see them parking at the church. We see them parking everywhere. Are they Oak Island residents? We don't go out and look. But I believe that the group that's the Oak Island Picklers or Pickleballers or whatever the right name is, if there was an issue, I think they would have let us know that they have too many guests coming. But they haven't told us that so far. Last year or the year before, when Loman did this, we came in and we put the resident parking along the front, and some people got upset and some people liked it and some people said, well, that was the intent. And so there is things out there, but we do not have the staff or the capability right now or anybody to be able to sit out there and monitor it. But right now, when you look out there, they do their thing and then they leave 4 at a time, 2 at a time, and then 4 more, 2 more come in. So if it was a problem, I think Paul and his group and them would have came back to us and said, we have too many guests, and that's all we can bank on right this minute.
Okay.
I accept that.
Try it and see.
Yeah. If it gets out of hand, then Paul and the other people will say, hey, we need a little help here.
Yeah, we're counting on our residents to bring it back to our attention.
Yeah. It's a start.
Well, I mean, ideally, it's self-regulating and the aberrations are few and far between. Your other choice is to pay for technology and scan yourself in, and issuing scan cards to residents. It becomes even more complex and more expensive, or posting somebody there during those hours and asking for ID. So rather than go there, pickleball's already complicated enough. We spend way too much time on pickleball, right? Let's see if they can work it out. They know, the players know each other, and they, I think for the most part, are courteous and respectful. And if the courts were to be vacant during resident time and somebody was playing, that's not a problem, right?
No.
There's nobody there? Okay. Like off-season, if somebody's here in October, and it's not a serve, right?
Right.
So I'm sure you've had that circumstance, and it just worked itself out, right? Okay.
So what, do we need a motion to pass this?
Yeah, consensus is what we had last time. If we can get consensus on these rules for the rule change, and then we can get some or temporary ones posted, and then we'd get the permanent ones, and Scott would replace them.
So you just need a consensus?
Yes, sir.
Consensus.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. No, well,
Last time.
Mr.
Yeah,
Eads
Brian
has
was
back
treated-
up.
Our attorney doesn't like that.
No, it's not that I don't like it, but I mean, the discussion about enforcement makes me think that a motion adopting these rules, if push came to shove, would give us more enforcement.
I'll make a motion to adopt these rules as presented.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor? It's unanimous.
Are you happy, Brian?
Yes, ma'am. And do you see my point, though? I mean, they're.
I got it.
They are the rules adopted by.
We
the
always see
council.
your point, Brian, until we don't.
Okay, Brent.
Thank you.
Consideration of fund balance policy, Mr. Hatton.
Come on, Hatton, you get to speak. You're like E.F. Hutton.
The state of North Carolina has come out with some mandates that they want fund balance to be measured in a certain way. And the reason they're doing this is this way they can compare municipalities across the state on an even keel. For example, they can see what Oak Island's fund balance is and what it should be compared to, say, Sunset Beach or someone else on the coast. And if it was on the western side of the state, they can compare municipalities and towns. Well, for the longest time, we always went with the theory that the state of North Carolina said you must have an 8% fund balance. And if you're along the coast, you have a 25% fund balance. Nobody seems to know where that came from. The state of North Carolina cannot say this was really a law from however many years ago. It was just a rule of thumb that somehow got started and everybody thought it was the law. So what I want to do is change our fund balance policy for Oak Island. And what it will be that the town will maintain a minimum accessible fund balance of at least 25% or 3 months of the budgeted general fund expenditures. And also, the total fund balance shall be at least 40%, which is approximately 5 months of budgeted general fund expenditures. Accessible fund balance is defined as a total of assigned fund balance and unassigned fund balance for the purposes of this policy. I just love reading accounting.
So we're already in compliance with the new.
Yes, sir.
Because the auditor flags that every year.
Yes, we are
And
way
says,
over.
wait,
we are-
you guys
I
are
will say
way up.
We are way over compliance
Okay,
on
so
both of
this
these
is,
issues.
this is not going to cause us any pain.
None whatsoever. I just wanted to be in compliance with the state of North Carolina.
But the reason we're way over is because we needed that when we had several hurricanes and a bridge closure and a pandemic and.
And we may need it again.
Exactly.
Correct.
You know how
I just
conservative
want to
I've
make
been over the
sure
years.
we reiterate that.
Right, correct.
We've had this conversation now for quite a few years.
8 years. We've had this conversation.
We are ultra conservative.
Yes.
I believe you either added a word that maybe you didn't intend to, or you added it and it needs to be there and because it's missing. When you referred to the minimum accessible fund balance of at least 25%, then I believe you said, or 3 months of the budgeted general fund expenditures. That word is not in that
Or,
statement.
I must have added a word.
Okay, so I
That's
want to make sure we
Exactly.
understand that there's an or in there
At
because.
least 25%.
Right.
Or 3 months.
Right, because sometimes
3 months.
25% does not
Correct.
equal 3 months of budgeted expenditures. And then my next question would be the same for the second statement. Is it 40% or 5 months? Because you didn't imply it on that one.
The
So I think-
state, where the 25% and the 40%, the state says it's 25% is approximately 3 months of
Right.
budget expenditures. And 40% is approximately 5 months of budgeted general fund expenditures.
Okay, but we don't need the or on the 40%,
we
but
do
we
not.
do need it at the 25%.
Correct. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
just wanted to clarify
Thank
that.
you.
So as amended, it would be you take out the parentheses around 3 months and just put "or" right before it. Madam Clerk, you following that? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And that's under subsection 3 on page 60 of the agenda packet.
You want me to make a motion, Mayor?
If you're done discussing. Any more discussion?
No.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the fund balance policy as amended.
All in favor?
Thank you, David.
Motion to go into closed session to consult with the town attorney to discuss specific personnel pursuant to NCGS 143, 318, 11, 1, and 6.
Second.
All in favor?
What is this?
We are back from closed session.
Madam Mayor, no action was taken in closed session. However, a motion, if so inclined, to approve the renewal of the town manager's contract would be in order with the amendment to the contract in Article 5 regarding pre-termination or pre-employee termination notice increased from 30 days to 120 days. In other words, if the town manager wishes to put in a notice voluntarily, that would require 120 days notice.
Thank you.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? We need a meeting to adjourn. I mean, a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mayor.
Need a second. All in favor?
Who seconded?
Unanimous.
Councilman Martin.
I agree.
The other day.